भारतीय संस्कृति, कला एवं परंपरा से संबंधित विभिन्न विषयों पर देश के सर्वोत्कृष्ट विद्वानों के व्याख्यान मध्य प्रदेश भोज मुक्त विश्वविद्यालय के द्वारा वीडियो के रूप में तैयार किए जा रहे हैं। हमारे लिए यह अत्यंत हर्ष और गर्व का विषय है कि मध्य प्रदेश के महामहिम राज्यपाल एवं कुलाधिपति महोदय डॉक्टर भाई महावीर के प्रारंभिक संदेश के साथ यह श्रृंखला प्रारंभ होने जा रही है।
मित्रों, किसी राष्ट्र के जीवंत परिचय के लिए उसकी परंपरा में निहित और विकसित कला व संस्कृति का ज्ञान आवश्यक होता है। भारतीय परंपरा में जो कलाएं विकसित हुईं और साहित्य तथा संस्कृति में पुष्पित रूप में दिखाई दी, उनकी महत्ता एवं समृद्धि विश्व के अध्येताओं से छिपी नहीं रही है। यह चिंता का विषय है कि हमारी कला, संस्कृति और परंपराओं की आधारभूत जानकारियों से भी हमारे ही विद्यार्थी भली प्रकार से परिचित नहीं हो पाते। महाविद्यालयों में अध्ययनरत विद्यार्थियों के लिए आधार पाठ्यक्रम के माध्यम से इस कमी को पूरा करने का विचार अवश्य बना था, परंतु गिने चुने पाठ्यक्रमों के छुटपुट प्रयासों से इन विषयों के साथ न्याय कर पाना संभव नहीं है। हमारे देश के मनीषियों ने समय समय पर भारतीय संस्कृति, परंपरा और कला आदि महत्वपूर्ण विषयों पर अपने विचार व्यक्त किए हैं, परंतु अगर ये विचार दृश्य और श्राव्य माध्यमों से विद्यार्थियों तक पहुँचें तो इन विषयों में उनका रुझान बढ़ेगा और वे अधिक जिज्ञासु व सक्रिय होंगे। इसी उद्देश्य से भोज विश्वविद्यालय द्वारा एक विनम्र प्रयास के रूप में देश के चुनिंदा विद्वानों के सरल और सारगर्भित व्याख्यान आयोजित कर उनके दृश्य और श्राव्य कैसेट्स तैयार किए जा रहे हैं। हमें प्रसन्नता है कि इस व्याख्यानमाला के जो प्रारंभिक पुष्प प्रस्तुत करने का सुअवसर इसे मिल रहा है, उनमें संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालय वाराणसी के पूर्व कुलपति पद्म भूषण डॉक्टर विद्यानिवास मिश्र द्वारा संस्कृति और संस्कार तथा संस्कृति, सभ्यता और धर्म विषयों का विवेचन है। इसी श्रृंखला में इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एडवांस्ड स्टडीज शिमला के अध्यक्ष तथा राजस्थान विश्वविद्यालय के पूर्व कुलपति प्रोफेसर गोविंद चंद्र पांडे विज्ञान एवं संस्कृति विषय पर 4 खंडों में व्याख्या प्रस्तुत करेंगे और डॉक्टर कपिला वात्स्यायन भारतीय कला पर व्याख्यान देंगी। इलाहाबाद विश्वविद्यालय एवं संस्कृत विश्वविद्यालय पुरी के पूर्व कुलपति प्रोफेसर त्रिविक्रमपति के व्याख्यानों के विषय भारतीय संस्कृति की अवधारणा तथा भारतीय संस्कृति और शाश्वत मूल्य रहेंगे। इस कार्यक्रम को सतत रूप से जारी रखने के लिए विश्वविद्यालय ने एक बृहद योजना बनाई है, जिसके लिए दूरस्थ शिक्षा परिषद द्वारा विशेष रूप से वित्तीय सहयोग भी दिया जा रहा है। हमें विश्वास है कि देश का प्रबुद्ध वर्ग इस योजना का स्वागत करेगा और इसमें सहयोग देगा। नमस्कार।
Indian culture has 2 aspects. One is Indian and the other culture. And let me tell you that there is something deeper in it, and that is the Indian conception of culture. So Indian culture is Indian culture in the sense of culture as interpreted by the great sages, the great saints and savangs of India. So it is not just Indian culture in the sense in which different national cultures are taken to be interpreted all over the world, like British culture, American culture and so on. It's not a routine theme. This theme is very deep. It is Indian culture from the standpoint of the definition of culture as understood by our great personalities of the past, the great sages who had clairvoyance, who could look into the future, who could predict the future, who had made predictions which have come true, literally word for word. It is the concept of culture which they had developed, not we of modern times, but those great saints. It is that conception of culture which I will be talking about, and I will be talking about our culture from that standpoint. So to start with, we should know what our conception of culture is. What is it that India treats as culture? This word Sanskriti is a rather modern word. This word does not occur in our classical literature. Sanskrita occurs, Sanskara occurs, but not Sanskriti. So the translation of culture as Sanskriti should be carefully understood. This Sanskriti is based upon Sanskara, and it is not some kind of development of the fine arts or crafts or modes of conventional behavior or traditions. As for example, sometimes the Western usage of the word culture takes within its ambit the tribal culture. We say that there are certain characteristics of tribal culture. We similarly talk about the culture of the Middle East. That is, the conventions, the traditions, the symbols and shibboleths, the costumes and customs, all these taken as a whole give a picture of culture. But there is another rather humorous understanding of the term culture, and I'll tell you a story. There was a friend of mine who had become a big officer in the government of India, and on one occasion he went to Bombay and wanted to put up with a friend of his who was a big businessman. When he reached his friend's house, he found that his friend was missing. He was not there in the house, but his friend's wife was there. So he was a little worried as to whether he should remain in the house or should go to some other place. But the lady of the house was a cultured person and appropriately received him, her husband's friend, and gave him the usual benefits of being a guest at a gentleman's house. She played the hostess, and she could not definitely say when her husband would come back. It was evening, and my friend waited there and waited up to 9 p.m. and then he thought that probably it would be dinner time and his friend would come back and they would dine together. And he asked whether his friend was coming within an hour or so, because he was still in a divided mind as to whether to linger on, especially when the husband was absent, to stay with the lady of the house in the late hours of the evening. He was a discreet person, so he waited. It was 10 o'clock. Then His friend's wife said, भाई साहब आप परेशान मत होइए, वो आते रहेंगे, आप खाना वाना खा लीजिए. Then he said, how can that be? We are close friends from our good old Allahabad days. I have to wait until he comes. And he waited and waited, and at 1 a.m. there was a knock at the door, and the great businessman entered. And when he saw his old friend, the senior government officer there, he said, आप और मुझे खबर नहीं है कि आप आने वाले, तो आप आने वाले हैं इसकी खबर होती तो मैं तो कभी बाहर न जाता, मैं तो आपके लिए इंतजार करता रहता. देन माय फ्रेंड आस्क्ड कि आप गए कहां थे? तो उन्होंने कहा रे यार एक कल्चरल फंक्शन में चला गया था. सो द मीनिंग ऑफ ए कल्चरल फंक्शन इज डूबियस. In the common parlance, what is a cultural function? It may be anything and everything. So I leave it to your imagination what type of a cultural function he had attended and why he was coming back so late, almost in the small hours of the morning. But culture is a deeper concept, and intrinsically it means refinement. It means cultivation. Cultivation for the purpose of refinement. But what kind of refinement is it? According to our traditions, that is the traditions of the great Indian philosophers, social thinkers, the meaning of culture is refinement of the personality from the point of view of the highest good of mankind. It is not only the refinement of one aspect of the personality, it is an integrated refinement of personality, and not also an aimless integration of the personality. The refinement that would be expected to be created in an individual should be for the uplift of mankind, for nishreyasa, for the highest good of mankind. And that highest good is moksha, that is freedom, freedom from bondage, freedom from the trappings of worldly pleasures which are of a lower order, pleasures of a lower order. It is freedom from the lesser delights. It is a kind of freedom which lifts up the spirit of man, that ascends to the higher planes of self-realization. And this self-realization is realized only through a complete annihilation of the self. When the individual becomes unselfish to such an extent that he is one with the common man, the man on the street, the suffering and the lowly, as much as he is one with the well-placed, those who have the preferments of life, the means of happiness in the classical and routine sense, when he is one with the whole of mankind, it is only then that he attains self-realization. In other words, self-realization is the realization of the higher self, which is the same in all of us. The individual self, the Jivatma, is transcended. उसके परे परमात्मा के स्तर पर हमें जाना है. But how can that happen? The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad puts it very beautifully. Atma va are drashtavyah, shrotavyah, mantavyah, nididhyasitavyah. The Atman, which is the highest self, not the individual self, not the self which is involved in routine activities with limitations and boundaries, with circumscribed conditions of work and living, but the higher self, the Atman. That is drashtavyah, shrotavyah, that must be understood through observation, through seeing and through hearing about it. But the Atman cannot be understood that way. It is understanding at a higher level. It is intuitive understanding. Mantavya, the manana that takes place, is reflection. It is reflection, cogitation, meditation, manana, which is the source of the highest intuition. And that intuitive realization leads to a kind of resolution of the personality. The individual then does not break. The individual is not killed, but the individual is assimilated in the highest self, the Paramatma. The Jivatma is not killed. It is not thrown away. There is nothing wrong in it. It is absolutely fundamental. But it becomes absorbed in the Paramatma, in the higher self. So the individual self is important. Each individual citizen as an individual is important. But there is the higher self to which that individual self inheres and belongs in a very intuitive manner. The individual, when he becomes aware that he is one among millions and millions of Jivatmas, which are all manifestations of the Paramatma, becomes one with the Paramatma. But that is not enough. Intuitively, one might go to that high, elevated stage of self-realization, but thereafter it may be that loss of memory, it may be loss of intuition may take place. Then the individual, after a moment's realization that the individual is not just to live for himself or for herself, but is one with the entire universe, so to say, not only mankind, but the entire living universe, and even more, the entire universe, is one with the entire universe. He is in harmony with the entire universe. After that realization, it may be that again one is punar mushiko bhava. One again comes back and becomes once again involved in petty affairs which are involved in selfishness, which are generative of selfishness. It is possible that a person, after a moment's realization that he is an Indian and he must be an Indian through and through, next moment becomes a casteist. It is possible. So the saint, the great Yajnavalkya said, Mantavyah, Shrotavyah, Mantavyah, Nididhyasitavyah. The last expression is the most powerful. Nididhyasitavyah. That means that moment's realization must be a continuous, properly stretched out realization. Continually, after that realization, that state of realization should be maintained. In other words, in every walk of life, in day-to-day working, in the experiences of our mundane world, we have to bring that realization to bear upon our activities. In other words, we have to carry that realization to day-to-day life. That is nididhyasitavya. So the Atman, according to us, is infinite, undying, immortal, perennial, and it is therefore called Paramatma. It is all embracing. The Jivatma is one with the Paramatma if only appropriate self-realization takes place. And thereafter the Jivatma has to continue in the state of self-realization, and it is only then that a person becomes cultured. So in the Indian traditional meaning of the word culture, there is deep philosophy. But nowadays people talk about tribal culture. Now in tribal culture there is no such connotation. It has nothing to do with that fundamental philosophical approach which our ancient seers had adopted. But that does not mean that I am against tribal culture. Let me tell you that the tribal culture is the body of customs, conventions, traditions of the tribal people, which are artistic in their own way, which are very elevating to them in their own way, and the extent to which they are in consonance with good life, with the universal principles of good life. Those aspects of tribal culture must be welcomed and will become in a way part and parcel of the higher culture which we conceive of. That will be one facet of the fundamental culture, of which there will be multifarious facets, multifarious aspects. Just as for a diamond there are different faces, and if you have a flat diamond, it is not really worthy of any attention. So culture in its essence is fundamentally a philosophical term, and the usage of the term culture in our English parlance is somewhat of an earthy type. It is somewhat commonplace. Our conception of Sanskriti, therefore, is the conception of that kind of refinement which makes a person elevated to the highest extent and prepared for the attainment of a complete self-realization, so that he becomes one with the entire universe, not only one with the other members of a given society, but one with the whole of this universe. There is therefore a kind of symphony, a kind of orchestration in this conception of culture. And you will find that the Indian saints and seers were great philosophers. They conceived of the highest goal of life as freedom, freedom from bondage, freedom from selfishness, and therefore you may say that our culture is philosophical. Our culture is intrinsically philosophical. But there is a kind of philosophy which can be dangerous. There was a definition of a philosopher as a blind man who searches in a dark night for a black cat which is not there. The cat is also not there. That is a philosopher. And there are some very humorous definitions of a philosopher, but this is good enough for the present. But it is not that kind of philosophy that is at the bottom of our conception of culture. It is the philosophy of positive attitude towards life. It is the philosophy of an integrated personality. So we had Purusharthas as our conception of the foundations of culture. Purusharthas are 4 in number. They are the fundamental values of life, and they are called Purushartha, not because they are meant for Purushas and they are not meant for Naris. That is not the meaning of Purusha. Purusha, the word Purusha here means the higher personality of man, the elevated personality of man and woman both. So it is in that sense that Purushartha should be interpreted. The first is dharma, the second is artha, the third is kama, and the fourth is moksha. Moksha, I have already mentioned, is the ultimate summum bonum of life, that is the highest goal, the aim to be achieved, that is moksha, freedom. But it can be achieved only when we have a desire to achieve it. That desire is kama, that is kamana, vasana. If we have no desire, we become like the earthworm burrowing into the earth, have no personality. But man is very different from the lower animals. And man therefore has desires not like beasts for commonplace pleasures, but the higher pleasures of life. He desires of a higher kind, desire for higher pleasures, so those are higher desires. So kama here does not mean just sex, but sex is not ruled out as well, because it is a process. It is a natural process. It is a natural phenomenon, a natural principle which cannot be done away with. For the sake of procreation, for the sake of the development of the society, sex is essential. But it is not debased sex. It is not sex which demoralizes a man, but it is sex which gives man partnership with his fellow traveler in life, his sadharmini. It is therefore an elevated conception. And then again, kama means desires of such a nature that dharma is always kept in the background of the mind. Dharma virodho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. Lord Krishna says to Arjuna, if there is desire in various creatures of this world which are in conformity with, in consonance with, and in harmony with dharma, then I am the personification of such desires. Krishna himself says that he is kama. And what kind of kama? What kind of desire? That kind of desire, those kinds of desires which are in consonance with, in agreement with dharma. But remember one thing, that in the Purushartha categorization, in the Purushartha hierarchy, kama comes first. It is not dharma which comes first. Kama is fundamental. Without vasana, without trishna, there is no life. Life is will, and will is desire. And this desire, after much experience, has been found to be source of disaster if there is no background of dharma. If desire is absolutely wanton, reckless, and if desire leads to license, then it is not true freedom. It is not liberty, but it is license. Then it can lead to disaster. Great civilizations have been completely wiped off because they were slaves of such desires as did not conform with dharma. So this dharma comes afterwards. But now dharma has been more or less well understood and established.